Welcome to another very exciting session of healthcare entrepreneurship. So, today we are going to talk about where we left in the last class and go from there. Okay. So, let us get started. So, buyers do not need to perceive or notice higher prices. So, buyers are not really here to look at your prices, they want to look at what your offerings or value propositions are, and if they think this is as per the competitors, or if you have a completely new product, that this is something which sounds like this has some quality aspect to it, they would really take it, right. So, you should not, as an entrepreneur, put constraints on your cost, thinking that this is the cost I am going to keep, and a lot of us do that. I have done that personally, like during my startup journey I have done that several times, where I feel like, okay, I am going to make this device for, let's say, 10 times lower cost of what is available in the market, and sell it probably for 2 times or 3 times of price, and it is going to be a huge success. So, guess what happened, the customers are so acquainted to the other products in the market, where they are, let's say, buying something for 10 lakh rupees and I am trying to sell something for 2 lakh, they typically think, oh, this is probably a very shabby or lousy product, right. So, that is the problem. Like, even though I am trying to have a right intention of cutting the cost down, the customers have not cared about it. They have specifically looked at the pricing as, oh, this is way too low, like probably it's very low quality. So, I could have probably gained quite a bit of money by making something in 1 lakh and selling it for like maybe 9.5 lakhs with a little bit of discount. That would still seem like it's within the price range. It does have quality and it's giving some discounts. So, it is the mind of the customer we have to really understand while we are looking at the pricing point, right. It is not always the lowest price which wins the show. So, when we talk about pricing strategies, tactics and policies, the choice of pricing strategy is typically dependent on corporate goals and objectives, customer characteristics, right. Uh, these characteristics of customers can range from how much the customers can afford, what do they typically think, or what do they typically have in terms of existing products which they are currently using, right. This is typically understood through a very detailed customer discovery phase, where we are very clear what the customer is willing to pay, and that forms as a part of the customer characteristics. The intensity of inter-firm rivalry, sometimes this is also a very important thing, where you will see that you are trying to come in a market where there is a lot of companies like which are just sitting or eyeing for your launch, and they have you guys have a lot of rivalry, and like they are just waiting to launch their product, and they feel like whatever, let him launch first and I am going to copy everything and launch it at a much lower price, right. So, these kind of things happens very often when you have products which are sold by several big companies, right, or like several times they are selling the same product, like oil, for example. So, many of the companies are selling this cooking oil, and they want to look out at what is this new cooking oil coming out in the price for, right. Like, if it is coming in 300 rupees, let me put it at 280 rupees, people will buy it, right. So, there is a lot of rivalry between these companies, no collaboration. So, this may happen with your products too, where for example, in the insole market, if I am trying to get out, probably Dr. Scholl's is such a big brand, they will probably not be having a rivalry with me, right. They probably don't even know me, right. But if you are trying to look in a market where there are cutthroat competitions like implants or stents or meshes like hernial meshes and several other things which goes inside the body, there is a cutthroat competition into how much price can be given. We may not be knowing because we are not dealing in such products, but once you get into those layers, lot of rivalries. So, that intensity of rivalry has to be understood, that how much can the other companies affect me. If there is a if there is a lack of rivalry, nothing is there, then I can choose whatever price I want to, like based on the other factors, right. Phase of the product's life cycle, this is another very important, whether you are at the third year of this product launch, or you are at the initial stages of the product launch, or you are about to launch, what level of prototyping or proficiency do you think this product has? Is it something which you think the based on your customer discovery that the general public or this particular target population is going to buy right away, or it will take some sweet time for them to adopt, right. Based on all these points, you want to decide on the pricing strategy which you adopt, right. So the first one is cost plus pricing. What is a cost plus pricing? It's one of the general pricing techniques like which all the companies and all the products typically follow, where you have a cost plus some markup. Markup is something which takes care of all your investment costs and like maybe some profits which you want to earn, or like on top of that, like you want to take some money home, like so things like that have to be put in. Like so let's say the real cost of manufacturing a device like a dental implant here is, let's say 100 rupees, and you're trying to sell this for 3000 rupees. So rest of the this 2900 rupees is basically all markup, right. Is it possible? Yeah, it is quite possible. Majority of the products which are getting mass manufactured, you will be very surprised to believe what the real costs are, right. So one of the homeworks which I have for you is look up for these websites like AliExpress or Alibaba. I'm sure like I've seen these websites a while back, right, like but just look at, these are some of the wholesalers majorly from the mainland China, right. So they are trying to sell a lot of manufactured products in bulk, right, and they are selling it for very cheap prices, like you cannot even imagine what kind of cheap prices they are looking at. So there was a while like I was trying to look up an insold product which is sold as a part of many footwear companies. So whenever footwear stores actually in the US, so whenever you buy a footwear from a store, they would typically have these insoles like presented along with it, that if you would like to add this on for a $15-20 more, right. And I somehow while searching found the same insole, same color, everything without just the logo in these Alibaba or AliExpress, Alibaba specifically, I think that wholesale website, and you'll be very surprised to believe what the price was. It was less than a 1 rupee, right. So that is the cost. You are trying to build something for less than a rupee and then trying to sell it for like 10 or $15. That's a huge markup. Then I started looking, this really intrigued me, and I started looking into more products. Smartwatches. Look up how much a smartwatch would cost. 9 or 10 rupees for manufacturing of one smartwatch. But what is the caveat here? You have to buy them in bulk. You have to buy them in thousands or 10,000. So a lot of these companies like Indian companies and other nations are buying them like in bulk. I don't know the latest status of the purchase, if this is all manufactured in India or what's the latest status, but this is like a few years back, like so when I'm talking about 3-4 years back, like when things were very different, right, with the so specifically this is the cost which it actually attracts to build a product, like when you're doing a massive level manufacturing, and the rest is all markup which is based on the shipping cost, or if you are taking something from abroad, or if you are building something in India, the manpower, sales and marketing, the space, everything kind of puts into the markup, and that finally gives the price. So this is basically cost plus pricing. The next one is competitive pricing. So competitive pricing is basically where you have one competitor who is, or a set of competitors who are basically pricing the same product almost with the same features. We are talking about the baseline version at a little lower price, like around $90 for example, and you have another competitor or a set of competitors, we could say, are trying to sell the same product for $99, right. So what could be your right pricing? Is it $200 or $50? No, it has to be somewhere in between, right. That way when the customers visualize the different products, they would look for specifically the extra value points which you are offering by looking at your initial pricing, that okay, so your initial pricing is around $95, so it's somewhere in between these two products which I usually buy. So it's within my range. So I typically buy that and pay this much amount of money. That's all great. Now let me look at what is the new offerings, what are the new set of new offerings this product has, right? So let's say it has a nice packaging, it has certain features which are very, very unique, or which is not provided by the other competitors. Now you have my attention as a customer that they are going to look into this product. But let's say my product was priced at a $50. Many a times you will see some customers looking into it for the cheaper price, but majority of the times who are so comfortable buying in these between this competitor one or two are going to refrain from buying a product thinking it's a very cheap quality product, right? So this is what typically happens with our pricing decisions. So an example is, I'll tell you a very classic example of buying a thermometer, and I take this quite a few times. So I went to this Apollo pharmacy to buy a thermometer, right? Like there was one of my family member was sick and I wanted to get a reliable thermometer, and I take this one regular thermometer which is like 3 or 400 rupees. I know that's how much the cost is. Then I buy one of this German thermometers which is around 2500 or 3000 ish, like between that price. So these are the two thermometers which I buy, scenario one, right? And it works great. I know the smaller thermometer is not coming in use for the most of the time, so they're very happy with the German thermometer, right? So 6 months down, the thermometer breaks down, and I go back to another shop where they do not have that thermometer, but they have a bunch of Indian make thermometers which are priced at different levels, right? So I see a thermometer for 600 rupees, very similar kind of features as the German thermometer. Then I see another thermometer for 1800 rupees, another for 1200 rupees. So which one should I actually go for? And there was another option, maybe 2200 rupees, right? So the next thing is what I do, I call my wife and I ask her that which one do you think like I should go for? These are some of the features. So the answer which I hear here is please go for the one which is around 2200. I think this is of high quality. So this is the story from almost all our lives where we are basically trying to determine, you know, here she has an interest level in this particular purchase, but let's say I'm thinking by myself, I'll also start thinking very similarly that probably this 800 rupee thing is not that good, right? So that's why competitive pricing is very, very important. I want to typically, if I'm buying some product and I kind of know what the market prices are, then I know that this is the price I want to go with, right? So put your pricing somewhere in between. That's one of the techniques for competitive pricing. This is known as, typically these points slightly lower and slightly higher should be explained more. So basically when you have slightly lower price, this attracts value shoppers who are price sensitive, right? In specifically the Indian market, you will see majority of the customers are price sensitive. That is kind of ingrained within us, like, and then you are looking for the value shoppers who are basically looking for the key value propositions or new values what you can provide, right? So like I've just explained, if you have the price within their range, they are now going to start looking for values. Now they are satisfied with the price range, that this is within that price range which I typically pay. Now let me start looking for the value propositions, right? So here is an example from the US market where you have Walmart versus Whole Foods. So typically if you look at Walmart, many of you may not be aware of too much how the Walmart looks like. So Walmart is kind of a very standard shopping place. You can think of it like Big Bazaar, you know, like where you get majority of the food items at a fairly low cost, not very premium items, and many of the places things are like dumped at a very good amount of discounts and stuff like that. So this is Walmart is typically where most of the students and middle class population would shop, or the below middle class will shop, right? And then there is Whole Foods. Whole Foods has a lot of organic foods and like you know, fresh vegetables and fresh meats and things like that, which usually has a little higher price, right? So what Whole Foods would have realized that A lot of these price sensitive customers would typically think of Whole Foods as expensive and Walmart as much more cheaper alternative, right, like for majority of the products which are offered. But if they can tune their price somewhere close by, then these price sensitive customers would be drawn more towards the Whole Foods, right. And once they have come in once with the Whole Foods, they will see a very different scenario, that is very nice and fresh kind of food items which they can buy. They will probably never go back to Walmart, right. So, that is the strategy, that you initially attract the customers when you have slightly lower. Now, they start looking for the value. The value point here are very nice food items, and everything is very clean and organic, and you feel like this is exactly what you want to buy. You do not want to go to Walmart, right. So, that is the purpose of having slightly lower price than what is the maximum you could have like around you. So, this basically communicates that your brand is economic and accessible. So, slightly lower basically communicates this message very, very clearly, that you are not an expensive brand, you are economic, you are set for all the sets of population, and you are accessible. Somebody from the lower middle class can also think about stepping into your store or taking your product. This kind of accessibility or economic are value propositions, right, which really attracts the customers. Next is slightly higher. So, slightly higher signals that your product might be better. So, when you are slightly higher than the competitors in the market, this kind of indicates that they are that these new folks, like that is us, like let us say as an entrepreneur I am trying to introduce the new product in the market. If I am going slightly higher than majority of my competitors, like then the customers do know that these people would have definitely surveyed the market, they could have taken the price low, but I am sure there is something more to offer, that is why they have kept their price high, right. That is typically the mentality, right. So, that basically signals that your product might be better. So, once you have that confidence, now you are going to start looking at the value proposition. So, the tactic here is very, very clear. Through the pricing, you want to create this image in the head of the customers that please start looking at my value, be satisfied with my price. Once you satisfy them with the price, then they start looking for the value. If your price is super high, they are not going to look. If it is super low, they are not going to look. So, both ways you are getting killed, right. So, one example of slightly higher is Starbucks versus Dunkin Donuts. So, these companies, the value proposition is a little different in the Indian context, where both are kind of foreign brands, and we would think of them as like something which offers good coffee or donuts or whatnot. But typically if you are looking at the US market, Starbucks is considered much more higher than Dunkin Donuts, right. Dunkin Donuts is like almost a little better than the gas station coffee shop. So, while you are driving, you would probably stop by a gas station to get some coffee or petrol or gas. That is what they call petrol in the US, and then the other way is like you stop by a Dunkin Donuts, you get a very similar priced coffee or a set of donuts, and you just buy it for a cheap price, right. Starbucks is typically where you would go out for your office meetings, or you would sit there to kind of work on some of your business things which you want to sit on a side and like work on it, and it is a little more a bit much more premium than Dunkin Donuts, right. So, it is demanding much more higher prices for all its products, typically indicating that there is some premium or value to it. Now, when the customers start getting into Starbucks, they will understand the value, and I am sure this is another exercise. Do visit Dunkin Donuts or Starbucks, you will know exactly how they differ. The overall outlook, or how things are served, or the quality, you will feel the difference if you really spend that time there. So, that is the kind of subtle differences like we want to place very clearly in our products or services, which makes them really stand out. The next technique is price skimming. This is a very common technique in this sales and marketing, where what you do is, this is the definition: when a company charges the highest initial price that customers will pay and then lowers it over time. So, this is very interesting, price skimming. Many of us may not really know about this. So, a company all of a sudden tries to charge the maximum when they enter the market and then lower the price. Why would they do that? This is all based on the demand and supply and other things, right. So, here is an example of iPhone. Which iPhone is right for you, right. So, you are looking at several versions of your iPhone, right. So, what happens is typically you have this new iPhones like which are sold at a very high price, right, 999 US dollars. So, this is labeled as new iPhone 12 Pro. This is a while back. I am sure like iPhone higher versions have come in. iPhone 12 Pro during its launch and iPhone 12, they are priced fairly at the higher segment, right. And then you have iPhone SE, iPhone 11, which is much more cheaper, and there is a not a huge time gap between when these iPhones were launched, right. So, what is being done here for the initial phases, when there is a lot of customer demand due to the brand value here specifically, customers are all jumping to get their first iPhone, right, that everyone wants to get their iPhone 13, iPhone 14 or whatnot, right. And when you jump in to get that, the company skims the price, increases it to whatever is the maximum capacity which the public can pay, and makes the 99% of their revenue in that time frame. Later on what they do is, they know after 5 or 6 months the enthusiasm has kind of died and people are probably waiting for the next iPhone. So, then they drastically slash the price to look at whether there are some customers who wanted to buy this iPhone, but due to the price they have not been able to. Now, they can also buy it, and after 6 months probably the new version has come. So, this is such a beautiful tactic which some of the companies play who have really got good brand attachments and brand value in the market, where this is typically what is done. And just look in and you will see the same tactics which are followed in a lot of different products, right. So, initially the price is high, you get the maximum revenue out of that, and after post launch after 3 or 6 months you slash the price, let the other poor customers or middle class customers take it, that kind of an attitude, right. So, that is known as price skimming. Next is pricing penetration. This is another technique. This is just opposite of skimming. So, penetration pricing, like this is based on this Wikipedia specific definition, is a pricing strategy where the price of a product is initially set low to rapidly reach a wide fraction of the market and initiate a word of mouth. The strategy works on the expectation that customers will switch to a new brand because of its lower price. So, the idea here is very different. Here you are basically trying to get a bigger market by offering a lower price when you are trying to just get into the market, right. And then later on you keep on increasing the prices. Once the customers have like switched their preferences from the others to this specific product, then you keep on increasing the price slowly and gradually, right. So, why would you do this? Like, so for example, there are some bundle and save offers and like things like that, where this is an example where internet is 35 Mbps internet is offered for 64.90 per month dollars. This is fairly high in terms of India. If you think about, this is super high, right, like, but still these are lower ends like an at a US level, right. So, this is the initial they want to put the pricing at a very low stage, so that everybody from the premium to lower grade of customers can afford it, and then they keep on increasing the price. Now, you cannot live without internet after 6 months, right. You have switched your brand preference, you are not now part of Comcast business. Let us say you are paying 64.90, after 6 months the price is now 85.90. What do? You now have a Comcast modem and everything, you have put your money in, put $100 or $200 extra for that, you cannot get rid of that. So, what do you do next? You pay that $88 or $85, you have no other option. So, this is a technique of market penetration, also a very key pricing tactic which a lot of these products based companies do. Another example which I have seen in live in India is typically when you buy an AquaGuard, you are buying this water purifier or AquaGuard for 6,000 rupees, right. and it's at a very nice brand, and the price is reasonable. 1 year down the line, before you know it, you realize that nothing more was included and you need a filter change, right? Nobody thinks about a filter change initially. I think the customers are getting more and more sensitized after once they have experienced the deal. But after a year you need a filter change, and how much does the filter cost? 3,500 or 4,000 rupees, right? Next year again you need a filter change, same price, or the filter costs have gone up to 5,000 rupees. So you are almost paying as equivalent to an AquaGuard within a few years, and like every year. So you have bought an instrument and then you have no other way to go it. What will you do without a filter, right? You cannot run it without a filter. So you are kind of forced after a certain point to keep on taking it. So that's a way of market penetration. Another example of market penetration is typically done with services, like, so a lot of these healthcare based services where you will see that there is this particular app for telemedicine, and a lot of these things are free of cost initially, or at a very small amount of cost with 100 rupees or 200 rupees. All of a sudden 6 months down the line, when you have a range of doctors who are treating you, they have raised the price, right? So 600 or 700 rupees, you have no other option. You want to continue with the same doctors or telemedicine practices, right? You have to pay 600, right? So these are some techniques of like doing the price penetration. Initially get the customers and then later on have them pay a premium. Similar with the Geo. So a lot of us are watching Geo cinemas these days, like an OTT, and this is all for free, right? After a certain while we'll get so used to Geo cinemas that then they will start charging a premium and we'll have nowhere else to go, because they are trying to integrate a lot of platforms, right? So these are some things we have to think about, like about our products and services as well when we are going for pricing. Next is value based pricing. Value based pricing is where you have not only a cost plus markup, but you kind of also factor in within the pricing a perceived value. What is the big thing which you are offering, like, to the customers, which probably none of the other competitors are able to offer, right? So the cost plus pricing is what takes up for the cost plus markup, and the value based pricing gives you a much more range to select your price, right? So one example is I have this pressure measurement insole where, let's say, there is no competitor in the market in the Indian setting for what I have. So I have the cost plus markup. Now I know this is specifically for diabetic population. So my cost plus markup is, let's say, 3,000 rupees. Now I know the perceived value of this is like as close to something which is foreign, like which is costing 50 or 60,000 rupees. So let me charge it for 10,000 rupees. I can make it whatever price, like based on the value the customers need it, right? So this is value based pricing, where I'm attaching a value point which is such a nice value point, either there is no competitor in the market or this is very, very unique feature or value proposition which it is providing, and I can jack up the prices like to any levels which I want, right? So this is known as value based pricing. Majority of the entrepreneurs would eventually want to get into this value based pricing mode. The other tactics are okay, like for bigger manufacturers in competitive markets, but we want to really derive the maximum value for our company or get the maximum revenue based out of value based pricing. So that's why customer discovery or value proposition understanding is of utmost importance when we are trying to go for our entrepreneurial venture with a product, right? So under the value based pricing, we are basically trying to locate data like what customers pay for in comparable products. So we are looking at not only at the amount of money, what exactly are the customers looking for, why are they specifically paying for that, that's also something which is important. What makes your product different and better, this is the value proposition basically. Place a financial value on those differentiating features. This is the tough one, right? How do you put a financial value that my product is like has an accuracy of 5% more than any other products in the market. Can I put 100 rupees on this or 1000 rupees on this? How do I put the money, right? So this is typically based on your customer discovery. You want to look at customers, you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, which is your customer's mouth, that what exactly are they planning on paying if you can raise the accuracy of the device by 5%, or you can provide something which is more comfortable, an ergonomic furniture or an ergonomic face shield or an ergonomic device which they massager which they can use in their house. How can you place a value on the price on the value? This is basically based on the understanding of the customer sentiments. Otherwise these pricings are all vague, like we cannot say that accessibility has to give 300 rupees, or just because I have a make in India it has to have 400 rupees. These kind of value points we cannot add. We have to look at specifically what the customers are thinking. Communicate the extra value that your product provides to the customer. This is what you need to do during your customer discovery. You communicate this value and try to see that how much are they willing to pay for it. Let us say there is a service, this is an example which has a blood collection service, like which can test you for CBC and like several other disease parameters. If you can add a few more parameters into it, your value goes up. Now the customers are willing to pay more, right? So if you know what a term plan is, like many of us are looking for health insurances and term plans, so they have typically something which is known as a critical illness rider. So just look up term plan, this is another homework. It's good to know about the insurance market in India, because this is also a very popular segment in the healthcare space, right? Where we are trying to get very nice insurances for different aspects, health insurance and term insurances. So term insurance is typically it's a very small amount of premium which you pay, and just in case there is some mishap and there is your accidental death or something else happens, like that way, like there is a certain fund committed which is paid to your family. So that is typically what a term plan is. So it has this critical illness rider. So if you look at term plans from the ICICI Prudential versus like Max versus like there is LIC based term plans, just look at their critical illness covers. In one you will see 35 critical illness, the other one has 65 critical illness. So this is how they are trying to market that rider, right? So by adding that extra value, that if somebody feels like I have this possible history of some diseases in my family, I want to probably get that rider too, right? I would probably go with this service provider rather than the other one. So this is a value point. This is a gain creator, not a painkiller specifically, because nobody knows what the pain really is with certain different critical illnesses, but like this is a gain creator, that now I get to cover myself for cancer, for diabetes, probably for different aspects which can possibly lead to fatality and other things, right? So certain critical illnesses are covered beyond the death part, right? So this extra value needs to be communicated to the customers during the customer discovery, and that is what you get to select the price point from, right? Then the next type of pricing is known as a loss leader pricing. What is this technique? So the loss leader strategy is where you are selling a product or service at a price that is unprofitable, but attracts new customers or encourages them to buy additional products and services, right? So this is an examples where 50% off, 5 first time shoppers get a 50% off. This is actually, if you look at the several models out there in the market, you get 7 clothes free for like 7 t-shirts free for 3 t-shirts which you buy. These are kind of unbelievable or unprofitable kind of specific offerings, right? Like, and many of these products you will see these kind of offerings. This app is completely free of cost, use it for the initial trial for 3 or 5 months, like then later on they add a price point to it. So typically this is a loss leader strategy where a company is ready to take a loss by offering either something for free or at a heavy discount just to attract a lot of customers. One example is when you go to a lot of stores and like you are visiting a mall, you will all of a sudden see this person offering some kind of new form of ice creams or like some new yogurt which they want you to taste, and you are so happy that I can taste this for free, right? So typically what they're doing is they're trying to look at the different customers, and some of these customers will say, out of maybe 100, maybe 5 or 10 will convert and say, oh, this is something which I really like. How much is this for? And they'll probably give it for certain lower price, and later on once they have gotten those customers, they will hike up the price, right? So that's very similar to a lot of medical devices. When they are offered for the first time, they are given at a much lower price, and later on when the clinician really likes or wants to use the same, they hike up the price. Same with apps, medical apps, right? So all these segments, this is loss leader strategy becomes sometimes very useful, but like I've said, it has not been very beneficial for one example which I gave was OneSource. So it could be something detrimental for your particular product as well, like sometimes people may think you are just offering something very cheap. So it depends based on what kind of things you're trying to sell, right? If you are in a very competitive market where you have 100 other brands offering like similar products what you're trying to offer, then this loss leader strategy is something which you can try. But if you have just 3 or 4 or 10 or 15 competitors, you may want to get with a better pricing tactic, right? So this just depends on specifically what you want to adopt. So this is an example where it's very similar to the like AquaGuard only, like where they have these two strategies kind of incorporated. So this is a razor with some blades, like this is typically at a US setting, not specifically in an Indian setting what is being sold. So the razor is being sold at let's say $10, and the blades are sold for 4 blades for $15. So can you run a razor without the blade? You cannot, right? So basically the blades, the consumables are made expensive. Example in the Indian market, glucometer. The glucometer is like fairly priced, but the strips are very expensive, right? So this is one of the medical industry example where you will spend a lot of money on the strips. Similar to lot of these other devices which are using consumables, right? Like so they will be expensive, like once you have started using them for a while. The next example here is a printer cartridge where the initial cartridge is very cheap, but or low cost, and the inks are very expensive, right? You cannot live without the inks. So it puts you in that situation that you have to buy it. So let's talk about a dental implant where you know as a company that this one part is going to get faulty in 6 months, and rest of the parts are going to get okay, stay okay for 2 years, right? So many of the companies, what they will do is they will just give a lower warranty for the entire device, and let's say after 6 months this part goes bad, now you can ask for a higher premium for this part if you want to replace. So let's say the dental implant will cost 500 rupees, and this part you will place them at around 200 or 250. So somebody will be in that range that whether I want to buy this entire implant or the part. So this will be very confusing to the customers, and many times if you set the price right, they'll go for the part, and that way you're getting the same consumable sold like again and again. Maybe the actual implant cost which you wanted to draw out of this was 1000 rupees, but you have put it down. You wanted people to invest on the parts, right? So how you want to gather money from the customers or that is based on how like you want to set your pricing tactics, right? Another example is this is a PlayStation game basically where the device itself is much more lower cost, and the profit is typically taken by the games which you play, right? So if you remember back in the day, the video games, like this is again a loss leader pricing, where basically the company has taken a dig in the profit, or has either gone in losses or have a break even with the sell of the device. But when people buy those cassettes with the games, like that's when the company is making a lot of money, right? Similar with 3D printers, right? A lot of these 3D printers are actually making a lot of money out of the filaments, right? Medical consumables, lot of these initial uh, injection based settings, like which are drug delivery based systems, the systems are cheaper but the consumables are expensive, right. So, this is how you have the right pricing tactic to make sure you can extract the, at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, what you are really thinking is providing some value to the customers and making the maximum profit out of them, right. So, in order to really go for those kind of profits, you have to use all this pricing tactics. Next one is web bundle pricing, where you can bundle certain key things together, and you can then say this is the overall price of the product or offering, and then you can basically derive quite a bit of money out of that bundling rather than selling everything individually. So, here is an example where just a big bag here can be sold for $225. Then you have the small bag being sold for $54, and both bags together it is being sold for $165. Like the 279 which was supposed to be the addition of both is cut, and it is just for 165. So, which one will you buy here? You will of course buy the third one, right? This is a no brainer. But is this the actual price of these bags? This is something which is very attractive, but the real price of the big bag could be as low as like maybe $50, right? And the price of the smaller bag could be as low as $10. So, you are actually paying a 165 for a $60 manufacturing, or even lower probably, right. But this pricing tactic is so unique that when you look at the pricing, you are going to go for the third, and that is typically what the company wants you to buy, right. So, this is a very unique way of bundling pricing. This is another example where you have a customized full body health checkup, right. So, what are you going to do if you are from the age of 25 to 30, or 30 to 45, 45 to 60, 25 to 30, you have 63 tests covered for $999. So, typically what this company would understand is 25 to 30, very few people actually get themselves tested, right, for whole body checkup. So, what they have really hiked up is the 30 to 45, where they have put like 104 tests and 2 scans for around 3000. This is the deal through which they are making the maximum amount of money, because this is the age group which will really test themselves, and another age group which is vulnerable and needs test is 45 to 60 groups. What has changed here from 30 to 45 and 45 to 60? The number of tests are the same, just 2 scans extra and 1000 rupees extra. So, the prices are based on the demand, right. So, would you read for all these specific scans, details and things like that? You will be probably very happy that so many tests are kind of covered, right. And then there is a basic test which is irrespective of the age. You have 47 tests, you do not even know what those 47 tests are, and 2 scans for original price which it should be is 4100, and what you are giving is 1999, right. So, the tactic here is not only the bundling, but also what is being cut. That is what typically our brain looks into, right. If I am getting something for 999 for which was supposed to be priced like 3200, I am really happy that I am getting the value for money. Am I really getting the value for money is the question. I do not know. So, this is typically something which mentally puts you in that position that I am having some discounts, right. And this is so deeply ingrained into the Indian setting that all of us love to get discounts, or like if something seems like very much value for money. That is why the pricing tactics are very different in India as compared to abroad, right. Most of the tactics there will not work here. So, if you think like for 10,400 rupees I have saved so much of money by not even paying 4,000 rupees, less than 4,000 rupees I am getting so many tests. The real price of those tests are probably peanuts, 500 rupees. You are already paying so much higher, but typically our mind does not want to think like that. We always want to win. That is our basic mentality, right. Whenever we see this, we feel like we are winning, and we will go for it. So, this is typically what the technique is like. Along with the bundling, this is another strategy where you are cutting the price down, but the concern here is the bundling, right. Okay. Next is anchor pricing. Anchor pricing is typically what I was trying to get into when we cut a price and then showcase like that you have so much discounts. So, the previous one was an example was bundling along with anchor pricing. So, anchor pricing is where unnecessarily it is not needed. You write an offer price just to kind of intrigue the customers that this is the actual value you would have paid if I would have not given you the discount. But now I am so kind to give you that discount of like let us say 60 or 70% and the sales price is much lower. You will see this quite often in the Amazon, right, that the money you have saved is 5,000 rupees for a sale of like 17,000 which you have bought, right, and you are so happy I have saved so much money. Where is that saved money? Nowhere, right. This is just being said. You have probably not saved a penny, you have shelled out more. But this is typically the mentality, like when you cut a price and write something that I have probably saved quite a bit. So, this cut price is known as anchor price, right. So, this is a strategy which is commonly used and companies use it very often and it works great in the Indian scenario. Let us look next. So, some examples of anchor pricing are this one. So, this product has 3 offering. Light is $15, most popular is $25, this is plus, and the premium is $50. So, this is the high anchor. So, what you would typically do is you would not want to go with the premium unless you really want it, and the company knows. So, as an entrepreneur you have to know that what the customers will not go for. So, you are basically taking a dig on yourself. You are raising the premium price to such a high and then say the most popular is something else, almost half the price, and now the customer is very happy. See, I am not going for the premium just for 2 features. Who is so stupid that they would go for this particular 2 features and pay double the price? I am not a premium customer, but I am the one of the most popular customers. So, I am going to go away with $25, right. And I am also not going with light because it is not serving the features. So, this is typically a pricing tactic. It does not specifically mean that the premium is really good or the most popular is fine, or you could also set this numbers a little differently. Let us just assume as an exercise, I put the light as $30, most popular is $50 and premium is $100. I will still end up buying this if this is a product which I want, right. So, this is something where using the pricing tactic, the entrepreneur is gaming with the mind of the customer and basically trying to extract the right information out where the customer will definitely look left, definitely look right and think, oh, I am so smart, I am going for the most popular, let me do it. Actually, the entrepreneur is very smart here. They have put the pricing right, or the tactic is rightly placed and you are a bait basically. So, this is what sometimes is very useful for these kind of products, right. And all these tactics have evolved over time through a lot of market discovery, customer discovery, specifically in the Indian subcontinent, right, like where how people think, that is how like a lot of companies are trying to invest in, and that is how they have found out that this is, once you do the most popular, people will buy this only. I also end up doing it whenever I am going for a subscription. I will never go for the premium, never go for the smaller one, I will go for the most popular, right. Okay. So, that brings us to the pricing formula. So, these were all the pricing tactics, right. Next comes the pricing formula. What is the actual cost of my product and how do I come to that overall pricing of what the product should demand, and then there you have the value driven prices and other things which you can add up. Yeah. So, from a pricing formula standpoint, you have the cost of materials, you have the cost of labor, which is typically in the terms of hourly labor, or it could be a daily labor with their amount of time or number of days which it is, and that affects the overall cost, that becomes part of the overall cost. The first markup is cost times markup, which is the wholesale price. So, whatever you get in the wholesale is not the actual manufacturing cost. This is some terms to just understand, like for benefit of all. So, the real cost of building a product or building a service is typically multiplied with a markup, which gets you the wholesale price. This is what is being offered at a wholesale rate. Then you have the second stage of markup, where wholesale times there is another markup, and that finally gives the retail price, what you are trying to sell it for. So, typically from a wholesaler, a lot of these companies will try to pick up and then sell it to the retail customers who are going to come to their shops, or like come to their online stores and things like that. So, typically when we are looking at products to be sold to the general public, we are looking at the retail price, and this would have several other components, such as like the value driven price and things like that can be factored in, right. So, what is markup? This is a term very important to be understood. Your markup is the profit which you make on each piece of your product, each piece, right. Markup is usually 2 to 2.5 or more times, right. So, typically you have a 2 times markup or 2.5 times markup. This is a typical rule of thumb, right. Markup is not the same as your take home income. This is something very important to understand when you try to figure out the price of your product. Markup is equal to profit, but it does not necessarily mean it is your income, what you are taking in your pocket, right. Why is that so? Because what is profit? Profit is the money you invest back into the business, or basically which is covering or spending on which you are trying to spend on things like website hosting, you have new materials, tools, supplies, education of the employees, or training of the employees or customers, taxes, legal services, like you may have a chartered accountant or a legal entity who is taking care of a lot of your aspects in the company. So, that is where the profit is going. You have the cost of manufacturing a product, which is, let us say, 5 rupees, then 2 times of that, that is 10 rupees. So, you have a 5 rupee markup or 5 rupee profit, that is all going into the electricity, the manpower, the training, everything that is being covered per piece, right. So, that overall times the number of piece is the overall profit, right. So, that is how profits are typically invested. So, you need to have a addition on top of that markup in order to take something back home. So, if you are just having a markup, you do not earn anything for your pocket, you are just sustaining your company very rightly. So, you need to put like maybe 5 or one time like something on top of it, like or an extra addition to that, which you want to carry within your pocket, right. Like, so this is one sell of a product is giving me 5 rupees profit, which is going back to the company. So, if I were to sell it for, let us say, 12 rupees, then I have 2 rupee which I can take in my pocket. This is the money which you are pocketing, right. What is income? Profit is not your income. Profit goes straight back into your business. So, typically what we understand from profit is, oh, I am making so much of profit, I am just focused on profits, right. Profits is, this term is typically used for the business, not for your individual profit. Yes, some component of the profit may be part of your salary or what you take back as a bonus and things like that, but profit typically goes back straight into your company. Income typically goes to you and your family. As an entrepreneur, you would like to make some incomes, not only profit. This is something very, very important to understand when we are trying to look at product pricing, right. Profit and income should never mix. This is another very important thing. You should never think of, oh, this is the amount of profit I am having, doesn't mean you are going to make a lot of money, right. So, as an entrepreneur, we are looking at making a lot of money. So, here the focus should be have the markups, have the profits, and as well as on top of that, like have something take away home, right. Good idea to start with a separate bank account for your business. That's one of the key reasons we have separate bank accounts for the business. We want to clearly demarcate what is coming back to the business and what is coming back to you, right. So, these are all aspects of the pricing segment. The next topic which we are going to study is known as budgeting. So, budgeting is a little switch from the pricing. It is about how you budget the different things around your company to make sure there is an optimal use of resources or optimal use of money. So, how do we do that, right? So, by definition, budgeting is the process of creating a plan to spend your money. Let us say I have this much amount of profits, we have just talked about profits, we are gaining, let us say, uh, 10 lakhs of profits on a monthly basis. How am I going to use this 10 lakh rupees correctly for my company? This is what budgeting means, right? The spending plan is known as a budget. Creating the spending plan typically allows you to determine in advance whether you will have enough money to do the things you need, or would you like to do, right? Budgeting is simply balancing your expenses with your income. If you do not have the right budgeting, you may incur huge amount of losses. There could be cases where you find out during the budgeting that the amount of money which you are getting back in your company is not good enough. You probably want to go for some fundraising. Yeah. So, budgeting is very, very important to first of all understand whether whatever your company is making, is it able to meet the ends? Are you able to optimally balance all your steps and processes to generate the products and services which you are planning on delivering, or do you need further income, or do you have some excess money which you can do something else with, right? So, that is how you typically budget. So, with this I would like to thank you. This is all for the session. Hopefully, you have learned something. We will see you next time for the next class, right? Thank you.